What's going on, investors? Dest here from Investments, and today I want to present a new project called Ravelin. And this is a new tome finance fork on the Cardano sidechain called Milkomeda. Now this project, Ravelin, is from the same team that brought us Pulsar and the layers involved with that, which is the main reason why I'm following along. This dev team has proven and earned trust from many community members, which is a massive asset to have in the DeFi space. I bring this up first and foremost because one of the main concerns with any DeFi project is rug pulls, and I have zero concern about something like that happening with this team, just based off their proven track record. The lead for this project was actually an admin previously for the Rug Doctor team, if you're familiar with that DeFi resource. Okay, so let's give an overview of what I plan on covering in this video, and I'm also going to leave timestamps to the separate sections in the comments below. I plan on covering the basics of what Ravelin is, kind of an explanation on how tomb forks work, as well as some of the strategy involved with this. And in the next video, I'm going to actually show you how to get involved, to make LP, how to stake, and all that fun stuff. So to cover the most important info that we'll be looking at, like any project, you should be looking at the docs. And this is going to tell you everything you need to know. So what is Ravelin? Well, like I said, this project is from the same team that brought us the Pulsar projects. It's a fork of the Tomb Finance project brought onto the new Cardano sidechain called Milkomeda. I did just make a video yesterday about Milkomeda, so if you're interested in more details as well as how to bridge funds over to Milkomeda, you can check that video out there. The accessibility to projects like this is exactly what Milkomeda was attempting to achieve for Cardano users. The goal of this project is to become the first stable pegged token to 180A via seigniorage. And we'll cover all the details of how this kind of happens in the Tomb Fork explanation section. So what you need to know is this project has 3 tokens: RAV, Rshare, and Rbonds. And as well as that, there's also 3 or 4 different APR buckets that you can get involved with. So you can get involved with the Genesis pool bucket here, the Rshare bucket here, the boardroom, and eventually the bonds as well. These all work together to achieve the stability or the price peg of this coin in the long term. Some of the additional goals of this project are to increase the total TVL for Cardano, to start building and showing usage for the Milkomeda sidechain, and of course to add value to investors via liquidity mining. So let's take a zoomed out view of how Tomb Finance works. In this example, I'm going to obviously use Ravelin for our reference, as that's the project we're kind of reviewing here. So there are 3 coins that are used to attempt to keep us close to a peg to a selected coin. Obviously, like I said, they're attempting to peg to 1 Cardano with this. And these 3 coins are going to be Rev, Rshare, and Rbond. Now Rev is the first token on this layer, and it attempts to be the stablecoin pegged to the price of 180A. This peg is achieved by a mechanism of expansion and contraction to try to maintain the peg. I like to think of this mechanism that drives this in terms of inflation and contraction, as I'm sure after the past year or so, you're very familiar with inflation and its effects. So this project is going to start with the Genesis pool, which you can see in the Farms tab here. And this is only available for a certain amount of time, and this is to attract the initial investment and offer a farming mechanism to earn the first native token. In this pool, RAV is the token that you're going to be earning. However, there is a multitude of inputs you could put in here to earn that. So for instance, you could do RAPW, ADA, or a stablecoin like USDC to earn your initial RAV. In this way, you can start to earn your first native token, and you have the opportunity to compound your earnings via the RAV/MADA LP. This Genesis pool will only operate for a set amount of time with a set inflation rate, just to get the ball rolling on the project and get the wheels turning. So the next step is when the second token becomes active, and in this case, this is called Rshare. Now the goal of this token is to participate in the expansion or inflation phases, typically called Epochs, and we'll cover that later. By staking RAV LP that you could have earned from the Genesis pool, or Rshare LP, which you would earn from this previous pool, you get R share as the output here for both of these two pools. So in both of these two pools, you're going to earn your R share. And this is going to become the valuable token, because as this project progresses, the boardroom is going to open up. And this boardroom is where you're going to earn money off the expansion phases of this project. So let's go into the boardroom and explain what we're looking at. So as I mentioned, this peg is maintained by the mechanism of inflation and contraction. So during the time when the price of the peg token is higher than it should be, so it's greater than 1-to-1, there is an expansion phase that occurs in the boardroom. This is going to utilize the R share token, as you will stake your R share to get high APR and earn more RAV token. Thus, this is going to increase the inflation for the RAV supply. And this is going to continue until inflation has become enough to achieve the desired 1-to-1 peg. Staking your R share tokens in the boardroom is going to lock your tokens in for 6 epochs, with each epoch being a period of 6 hours. So earnings in the form of RAV, because you get paid out in RAV, however, can be claimed after only 3 epochs. However, if you were to claim them after 3 epochs or 4 or 5, you're going to restart the cycle and you're going to be locked in for 6 more epochs. However, there's an additional component to consider when regarding these epoch phases of expansion and contraction called TWAP. And TWAP means time weighted average price. This is basically an averaging calculation that is done to switch between the phases of expansion or contraction. But I want to note that these periods of inflation or contraction only happen one at a time. They're not both occurring at the same time. That just wouldn't make sense. This means that the switching between these phases of expansion and contraction is not instantaneous, but based on a TWAP average. So this is going to smooth out the curve to try to maintain the peg, but it's also going to open the opportunity to earn bonus rewards in the supply reduction or contraction phase. And we'll talk about that momentarily here. So now let's look into the contraction phase. So what if the peg is lower than 1-to-1? Well, this is where the third native token comes in, called Rbond. This token comes into play when the TWAP, again, the average, of the peg falls below 1-to-1 and the contraction phase is triggered. The goal here is going to be to reduce the circulating supply to get us back to that peg. So how does the Rbond work? Let's go to the docs and look at the bond mechanism here. During the contraction periods, Rbonds are issued and available for purchase using the first native stablecoin that you would have earned, called RAV. In this transaction, RAV is going to be burned, and thus the supply of RAV is going to face a negative inflation rate, which should in turn reduce the circulating supply, and that should try to get us back to peg. Now, why would anyone want to sell their RAV for Rbond? Obviously, there's a little bit of game theory that comes into play here, and you want to try to earn a profit. So the idea here is to hold that Rbond until the RAV peg is back to 1-to-1 or above, and then reclaim it for a profit and sometimes even a bonus. This bonus can be earned by selling at a period that is above 1.1 TWAP. Now that can be a little confusing. Now the basic understanding of that is the higher that TWAP peg is, the more of a bonus you're going to get. But there's also another side of the bond mechanism and boardroom that we haven't yet discussed, and that has a huge effect on the bond mechanism, and that's the DAO fund. The DAO fund is an additional line of defense on top of the bond mechanism. That DAO is going to earn 20% of emission from that expansion phase. And these funds are going to be held and used for Rbond redemption as well as buybacks when TWAP is below the 1-to-1. Also, the DAO could use its funds to sell when the TWAP is extremely high. This all acts as another way to maintain peg. So let's look at some of the strategy involved here. On a very zoomed out picture, you're going to want to try to get into these projects as early as possible, preferably in the Genesis pool phase. You want to try to earn these peg tokens and keep compounding it into LP. And I'll show you what this looks like right here. So these are the Genesis pools that you will earn RAV from. With that RAV, you can either put it into LP to earn more RAV, or you can bring it up here to these secondary pools to earn R share. From this, the secondary pool is going to earn you R share, and that is probably going to be the token that you're going to want to earn, because traditionally this is the token with the most potential to soar. The secondary token often has lower liquidity. The boardroom is going to offer you great APRs during these expansion phases, and the liquidity is going to be locked into these boardrooms for 6-hour epochs during the expansion phase. Also, after a set period of time, typically about a year in Tomb Finance forks, the only way that you're going to be able to get Rshare would be to buy it on the open market. So all these factors are going to make Rshare really attractive and coveted in this ecosystem. It's also going to provide the opportunity for Rshare to soar, which could potentially bring in speculators. With low liquidity, outside purchases are going to move the price substantially. So when you're looking at the strategy, obviously when you earn Rshare, you're going to want to hold it and possibly stake it into the highest available APR pool. And then when the boardroom opens up, you're going to be able to stake your Rshare there to earn more RAV during this expansion phase. From there, when you start earning your RAV, you're again faced with a kind of decision on which route you want to go with your earnings. You could take your RAV that you're earning from the boardroom and sell some of it. You could double down and compound your staking. Whatever you want to do on the back end, that'll be up to you to determine your strategy. But what happens if the price does fall to below the peg? Of course, that opens the opportunity for Rbonds again, where you can profit. So this is going to enable you to profit off the downside if this peg starts to slide. So this project really looks like a win-win if people are all on the same page and trying to play the same game. So with that, I think one of the most important factors to consider in this project's success is the strength and trust of the community. Like I said, this platform works best when everyone trusts the system, and if Knox, the leader of this project and the Pulsar projects, has done anything through his work, it's build trust within his community. This, in my opinion, is going to be one of the huge factors for this project's success. These types of projects attempt to stay slightly above peg, and in doing so can continue to print money for the participants in a continual expansion phase. And that's a best case scenario. That's what we all want, to just be able to continually print money. So I'm really pumped to be a part of this, and I think it has the potential to be big, especially being the first of its kind on the Milkomeda and Cardano network. I think if more Cardano users catch wind of this possibility that they could be open and exposed to, it's going to gain traction for both this project and Milkomeda. So that's all I got for this video. I got another follow-up video coming showing you the ins and outs, how to make LP, how to stake everything, just showing you how to work everything on Ravelin. So make sure to answer all your questions there. So if you appreciated this content, don't forget to use the currency of YouTube and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe. Till next time, later.